I see Narayan amongst us. Narayan is a dear friend. So Narayan Devanathan is the Group Chief Strategic Advisor, Dentsu India. I invite him to deliver his keynote on the topic, Back to the Future, New Intersections of Intelligence and Imaginations. Narayan, I welcome you to the stage.
Thank you, Vijaya. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your attention. As you can probably tell, I'm very subtly dressed today. I don't take myself too seriously. I do take my work seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously. But what I'm here to offer today is not so much, I hope it doesn't come across as gyan. I don't have too much of that. But I hope to offer some provocations. And I hope to provoke each of us, including myself, one more time as I speak and interact with each of you about the paths that we are embarking upon, about the future roadmaps that we're creating both for ourselves and our organizations, but also collectively for our industry and for the world that we live in and the communities that we serve and engage with. You know, one of the things that has been a truism for the longest time is that business and politics never mix, at least on the surface. I wonder how many of us would have probably predicted, even as late as maybe October last year, that the most significant opening milestone of 2024 would have business and politics collide like never before. And again, my colors today are a subtle cue to the event that I'm referring to from yesterday. We had Bollywood, we had business, we had politics, we had the government, we had the army, everybody coming together to showcase, I don't know what new dimension of India, okay? But there is a path that we are embarking upon, and it is at the intersection of intelligence and imagination in ways that we've probably not predicted before. But it is the path that we are heading down towards. And maybe those of us who may be cynical, those of us who may be skeptical, those of us who may be very enthusiastic about this future that we are moving towards, maybe the best thing we can do about all of this is be open-minded and see what we can do to make the most of it in multiple ways, okay? But it brings me to the starting point of where practically every journey for a business probably goes back to. And it is asking this question, why are we here in the first place?
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
So the question becomes, are we the brands, are we the businesses, are we the things that people look for, or are we the things that come in the way of the things that people look for? What happened yesterday, for most of us in the world of business, might have been the thing that we would have wanted to avoid because we don't want to be on any collision course with things that are very volatile. But for most people in this country, it's what they were looking forward to. So are we setting out to become the thing that people miss, or would rather find the skip button about? Or is there a way for us to constantly recognize that we want to be, if not useful, if not interesting, at least entertaining? Right? If we can start with that, then maybe we can get to the place that not just we want to get to, not just our organizations, but where the people that we engage with, where the people that we serve, where the people that we interact with are looking to get to. Now, I gave something away over here, but I have a question for you. And many of you are probably familiar with this quote. Any guesses approximately when Einstein might have said this? Just shout out a random year if you want to take a guess. Okay, I'll spare the agony over here. Einstein never said this, right? This is another of those things that does the round because we've just been used to hearing it over and over again, and we accept it as the truth. And so we live in a post-truth era where it's much more difficult to parse the fake from the true. And for the last 10 years, as brand owners, as brand custodians, we've been pursuing this path of trying to be authentic because that's what apparently our consumers have been asking for. But if you look at the cutting edge of technology today, it's easier than ever before to create the untrue, to create fake, to create what looks so ridiculously like the real and yet is not. And this is an example from an analog time of what passes off as real because it's what has been circulated over and over and over again. Right? So as brand custodians, maybe we need to question ourselves again. Is it still worthwhile pursuing the milestone of authenticity? And if so, with the technologies in our hands right now, in the hands of people right now, how do we do that? And is it even a realistic pathway to go down? My next provocation is a little bit of an introspection, and I do this at all times as well. And maybe some of you have seen this cartoon as well. It's the paradox of trying to create the new, right? And we're always afraid to try something out new because it's never been done before. But if we are never going to do something new, how are we ever going to do something new? Right? It's that old paradox also of this young person who sets out to find a job for the first time ever, and she's told, oh, but you don't have any experience. And like, but if you give me a job, that's how I'll get experience. So how am I supposed to get experience if you're not going to give me the opportunity? It's the same thing with innovation. If we are never going to give ourselves a chance to fail, how are we going to give ourselves a chance to create something new? And so are we stuck in this vicious cycle? Are we stuck in this rut of trying to, there's no polite way to say this, trying to CYA at all times because we'll be held accountable, we'll be held responsible for failure, when actually, as Edison is supposed to have said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I discovered 1,000 ways to not do something. Right? So now you know not to make the same mistakes over and over again. But are we allowing ourselves the permission to fail? And so it appears, as some of you, I'm not going to attempt to say this in French, but the English translation of this is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. And so when you keep looking at the cycle of history, you realize there are a lot of things that have changed. But at the core, we still remain the same kinds of creatures that we are. There's a gentleman called Bill Bernbach, who is a legend in the advertising business. And he said something about 65 years back. He said, it's fashionable to talk about changing man and changing human beings. But we forget that for millennia, we've remained the same. We remain driven by the same emotions, by the same values, by greed, by hunger, by sadness, by grief, by joy, by the things that we love to do. Those have not changed at all, and we continue to be driven by those same emotions. And yet, the new catches our fancy. What happens in the last trend cycle? What happens with the most recent hashtag? What happens with the most recent Amul topical? That catches our fleeting attention. But it doesn't mean that that's all catches our attention. Bijoya spoke in her introduction about fleeting attention spans, but we are the same people who supposedly have the attention span of a goldfish, but are willing to binge watch on our OTT channels for hours on end without getting out of our pajamas. So it's not about whether we have the sufficient attention span, but it's about what can hold our attention. So things remain the same even as they change. But are we moving with the times, or are we harnessing the constant? The other huge provocation was given not by me, but by this author called Anand Giridhar Das. Again, Vijaya touched upon the responsibility that we have as businesses and business owners of sustainability. It's a big word, and unpacking it sometimes takes a lot. But the simple and quite provocative way in which Anand Giridhar Das says this is this: as businesses, we are the ones who are setting the world on fire. And then when we take up the cause of sustainability, when we do CSR, when we say we will do well by doing good, he says it's like calling the arsonist to put out the fire. We are the ones who set the world on fire in the first place. Can we take responsibility for it? Right? Can we at least say it's not about doing good anymore? It takes a lot more moral courage to say, I will try to do right. I will try to do right by the world. I'll try to do right by the ethics that run this world. I'll try to do right by the values that make the world a more equal and equitable place. These are tough questions, and it's tough to even ask the questions, forget trying to figure out the right answers. But increasingly, we are left with no options but to confront these questions. Because as the cliches go, we won't have a planet to sustain our lives further if we don't take care of it. We won't have a peaceful planet if the economic and social divides continue to widen as we see them widen across the board. So it's no longer enough for us to sit out on the sidelines as business and say, that's not my business. That's what happens in politics, that's what happens in government, that's what happens in civil society. I'm over here. I'm just here to make money and sell some things. That's no longer an option for us. But are we asking these questions of ourselves? Is the fourth provocation I want to put forth to you. Because when we bring up the courage to ask ourselves these questions, then what we'll realize is there is a different way to look at this old parable of the blind people and the elephant. That in fact, maybe we are the elephant in the room. That maybe we need to address what it is that we're doing, not just to ourselves, but to the world at large. And how can we, with the enormous power, both economic and cultural power that we wield, how can we truly make this a better place? And it's not about purpose-driven marketing, it's not about purpose-driven advertising. It's about truly saying, as the powerful people with so much influence in this room, in our organizations, how can we use this influence to turn our organizations, ourselves, our consumers, in a direction that actually makes the world a better place? If you think I'm only going to ask the tough questions and I don't have any guideposts for where we can go, I hope you will allow me the opportunity to share that as well. And that's where I bring my innate reckless optimist to the fore. I never think that the world is such a dark place that it cannot get better. As the old saying goes, the darkest hour is before the dawn, and there's always a new dawn that is upon us every day. But the art of the possible is very much in the realm of what lies within our grasp in the immediate present as well. Again, Vijaya spoke about these four cornerstones of the things that we engage in our daily lives as professionals. There's the magic of storytelling, there is the possibilities of data, there's the new dawns that technologies herald, and then there is the opportunity to do better that the questions around sustainability bring. If you look at these four and you get into the granular details of each of these four realms, what you realize is that at all times, we have reams and reams of information available to us. And a lot of times, it might get a little overwhelming to try and make sense of what is in front of us. Which is where the technologies of the day, and I fervently wish that AI and ML, with the advances that they've made thus far, don't become another mirage like NFTs and Web3. The promise truly is there, and I hope it matures enough to make this better. But what they already promise for us is to take these same dots that we have and to find the patterns that make sense and help us do something meaningful with them. So intelligence is easily accessible, a lot more easily accessible to us, thanks to machines themselves being imbued with the intelligence of humans. But the art of the possible is not about the machines alone. The machines are what will enable us to do even more than what we've been doing. And it comes from what's inside our heads at all times, because when you collect enough dots at all times, then what happens is that you give free rein to your imagination. And suddenly the dots connect in ways that we've not thought possible before. And to go back to what I started with, maybe some of us in this room probably did imagine it, but a lot of us probably didn't imagine that the single most important milestone to herald the new year would have been what happened in Ayodhya yesterday. But the dots were there for us to connect and see that it was a momentous occasion. Right? And maybe there are more what we might otherwise term as black swan events that await us. The dots are there. It's up to us to connect them. The magic of this is, now that I've shown you that it's possible, even when the lines are not connecting, you can see the cat in there. So once you train your mind to give free rein to your imagination, then you know that maybe a jaguar, maybe a giraffe, maybe more than just a cat is possible. And that is the art of the possible, and that is what we have the opportunity to create as we go forward to respond to the provocations that I put forth a little while back. Let me go a little further into detail with each of these, right? A lot of times, and I especially love telling this to my friends and colleagues who come from especially the western part of the world. They come to India, and any Indian city is typical of this, but especially in Delhi, where we really don't care for the rules, right? The rules are just suggestions that we ignore most of the time. And they're astounded by the fact that in every roundabout, every goal chakkar, we don't just kill ourselves all the time. I mean, they're astonished that we make it past to the other side. And they go back to their business schools and they teach VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. And I tell them that roundabout is our living example of VUCA every single day. We make it through to the other side. Don't ask us how we do it, but we do. But this ability we have in India to embrace the chaos is an amazing one, and I hope we harness it to our fullest capability. It's not something that comes naturally to the more progressive parts of the world because they're used to order, they're used to systems, they're used to things working the way they're supposed to. And then when they don't, everything breaks down. We don't break down here that easily. And so if we use that same ethos and embrace the chaos, then we'll know that the true power of AI, for example, is not this.
Gender reveal crossed the road to become a sandwich. It is a Burger King encouraged the chicken, made with white meat chicken, bed of lettuce for you to sleep on, bed of mayonnaise for extra sleep. The chicken sandwich from Burger King tastes like bird. BK logo appears.
Let me see if I can get the second one to play.
Gender reveal, bad. Tender reveal, yum. It is a boy bird with crispy chicken tenders from Burger King. Like lavender, but -1. Math is tasty. Tender plus sauce equals romantic dinner. Eat the math. Pick 2 of these for $6 money bucks. BK logo appears.
I quite like the response on your faces as you were watching that. I think most of you wanted to say it, but didn't quite articulate the letters WTF. But that's what they were going for, right? If you leave it just to the machines, this is what you're going to get. But if we embrace the chaos of what the machines can create, and on top of that layer it with the brilliance of human imagination, then there's a rich vein of possibility that emerges. Kevin Kelly, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine a few years ago, he said, "I'm not afraid of AI. Until AI becomes artificial imagination, I would never worry that the machines will take over the world." And the realm of imagination still is very much a human realm, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And that's because, we don't need to necessarily only work this way. We can go all over the place and still figure out that's where we want to get to. That's how this superpower called India is emerging as well. The other thing to do, and sorry I don't have more polite words to say this, we often say cater to the lowest common denominator, and there is wisdom in that.
Oi!
I'll let you watch this and then talk about the wisdom in that. There is a thesis that I have that as human beings, we are wired for negativity. And one of the expressions of being wired for negativity is that we want to expend the minimum effort that is possible in trying to get through any situation. Right? If we can be lazy, that is the default mode that we want to be. And couch potatoes are a thing because of that, right? And so that behavior is something that we can account for regardless of what problem we are trying to solve. And as you saw, the camera guys did that by making the camera waterproof, because they said, whatever level of idiot comes across our camera, it'll still be fine, right? And without ever calling our consumers idiots, if we can cater to their inherent lethargy, to their inherent laziness, in fact, it's not, let me not use just the pejoratives, right? They're just trying to conserve energy. That's what the universe itself tries. It's aiming for entropy. And so all of us are trying to conserve our energy, and minimum usage of energy is what we're going for. So can we enable that for most of our people? This is an interesting and favorite guidepost for me myself. And I think we're finally in a place where the machines allow us to do this, right? For the most part, and I think there is, I don't know if there is any brain scientists in the room over here, but the research, I think, says we only use approximately 17% of our brains for the most part, right? So the rest of it is just either hidden or unutilized or used for mundane tasks. And it's used for mundane tasks that have to be repeated over and over ad nauseum on a daily basis. And imagine not having to waste all of our brain power for that. Now, that's what the machines are going to allow us to do. And this was the original idea with the Industrial Revolution back in the 1700s and 1800s as well. And I don't know if you know this difference between how Europe and the Americas approached, or not the Americas, just the United States, approached the Industrial Revolution. But when the machines came, Americans said, machines, we can work more. And the Europeans said, machines, we can work less. Right? And I think we need to bring that thinking back of the Europeans to say the machines are now here to do most of our work, so we can use our brains for the things that they were intended for ingenuity, for creativity, for innovation, for the things that we believe we can really take things forward, take the world itself forward with. Which brings me back to kind of bringing everything together again. I spoke about connecting the dots, and I'd like to share an example of how we can bring that home over here. And again, those 4 pieces that Vijaya referred to upfront as well, right? How do you bring the creativity of storytelling, the intelligence of data, the advancements of technology, and the provocative questions that force us to think about creating a better planet and a better society around sustainability? How do we bring all 4 together? I've tried very hard not to plug Dentsu over here, but this example is something that our Japan headquarters created, and I'll let you watch this first and then come back to you with how the dots connect.
Tuna, one of the most precious marine resources. As the population continues to age in Tokyo, the number of artisans that examine tuna quality has dwindled to half from its prime. This valuable skill might disappear in the near future. We challenged ourselves to create something that would ensure the sustainable supply of high-quality tuna. Introducing TunaScope, an AI successor to Japan's long legacy of tuna inspection. The key was in the fish's tail. In markets in Japan, only a handful of artisans had been responsible for the inspection of tuna quality. Everything you need to know about the fish is said to be contained in this vital part. But this skill takes artisans at least 10 years to attain. We have taken a vast number of photos of crosscuts of tuna tails. Intuitive knowledge, once only attained through years of experience, was recreated through deep learning. TunaScope, an AI with an accuracy rate of over 90% compared to a veteran artisan, was created. We have expanded the use of this AI from Japan to the world. Japan's skillful inspection has become available everywhere. Furthermore, the project has been adopted as a promotion program supported by the government of Japan. Our goal is to collect data from tuna markets across the world using TunaScope and create a fair global standard of tuna quality. Our AI technology developed for TunaScope can be applied to various fields in the future. TunaScope, an expert eye for AI.
So AI, which covers the realms of data and technology, the storytelling was apparent, hopefully. But the entire thing was around a more sustainable way of not just doing business, but of consuming, of producing, and of just creating an ecosystem and a marketplace that didn't just destroy itself as it went forward. The final thing that I'll say is not so much a provocation as a request for all of us. And it's indulge me as I talk through this acronym that I've created over here. There's a story about these two creative directors from Ogilvy in Canada who created, some of you may be familiar with the case study of the campaign for Real Beauty from Dove. It went on to win lots of awards and was a very path-breaking campaign that redefined standards of beauty in real people versus the model-like standards that were previously creating unrealistic aspirations among young women. These two creative directors quit the company right after they created that campaign to start a company called Swim. Okay? And Swim had a singular objective. It was to create marketers and business owners who actually could be much more like the people who allowed them to create the campaign for Real Beauty. And they said the number one obstacle to creating great work is actually people who lack the courage and the integrity and the empowerment to do the work that is needed, to do the work that they would like to do. So my request to all of us is to examine if we bring enough integrity, if we bring enough courage, and if we bring enough empowerment to do the kind of things that bring those four factors together: creativity, innovation, data and technology, and sustainability, to help create a better world and to create those future roadmaps in new ways that we've not thought about. Yeah? And maybe then we'll be able to foresee our next Ayodhya moment as well. Have a good afternoon, and thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very insightful presentation. It was very, very engaging. Can we give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen?